on the right track. So we're here, so we're gonna roll with it. Let's give everybody a minute. Give me just 1 second here. Okay. So sorry if you guys had any mix-ups or technical snafus or whatever. But are we crazy? We're on schedule, right? Did we have one last week? I think no. If you guys can put in the chat, are we losing it? I mean, you guys are here, so yeah. Let me know. And we didn't. We're still on the every other week one, right? If somebody can confirm or deny my losing my mind, that'd be great. But here we are. So give us just 1 second, and then we'll kind of dive in. I mean, this administration is keeping us busy, so we'll talk about the latest and greatest. Yeah, and thank you, Kathy, that maybe we did have it right and we just got our links mixed up or whatever. So thank you, I appreciate that. Okay. And because we have again, I think really the content I have to share with you guys is really focused on these changes in the Department of Education. I want to answer any and all your questions around that. I want to hear your observations. How is it impacting, your school, if at all? I guess as specifically as we're talking about higher education, college, etc. But that would be helpful. And again, I'll talk about the impact there. But let me see if my colleague Anne Marie was able to join us or not. I don't see her on there. Anne Marie, so let me know if you're here. Just put it in the chat because I know you have some questions that you want to share from the poll, assuming we can, and if we can't, we will those poll questions will have to wait. And I'll give a little bit of background specifically on what these poll questions are. Oh, there she is, making her bi-weekly appearance. Hi, Anne Marie. Hi, buddy. I said there you are, making your bi-weekly appearance.
Hello, everyone. Uh-oh.
Rough start today, buddy. Rough start to the team. Wrong links. Not even sure if we're supposed to be here. Didn't know if we did it or not. So I think we're on the right spot here. But I was just going to say we have some poll questions to share. Are they available in this? Do we have the poll questions in
We
here?
do. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you can start posting those, and then I'll kind of talk through.
Sure.
What our get is that we have a ton of the feedback we've got from you all is like, hey, we love the platform. We love what College Aid Pro is doing and what we're trying to solve, right? And a lot of times we'll describe our platform as the score of, financial aid and scholarships, or the Naviance, or the Maya Learning, or the Zello, or the School Links, whatever platforms you use. A lot of times we'll hear like, can you guys integrate? Can you guys talk to each other? Because they take care of the admissions part of it. You guys do the financial aid stuff, but like, I don't want to log into something else. I certainly don't want to ask parents to log into something else. So it just seems to be a blocker, which makes a lot of sense, right? So we are in active conversations with all these guys to try to figure out how to make that work from a tech perspective, and making progress, or further along in progress, with some folks than we are with others. Some of you guys actually probably, if you haven't already, you'll get an email from, if you're a SCORE user, you'll get an email from them today. We're just collaborating on some content. We're doing a presentation for their audience, counselors, parents, and students, April 2nd on all these department ed changes and how that's going to impact financial aid scholarships. And so anyways, you'll see that in your inboxes, but we want to, and if you guys, am I able to see these poll questions, Anne Marie? I'm not seeing them, but maybe they're still working.
They're still working.
Okay, they are working. All right. Just I'm not seeing them. Yeah. So great. So thank you for answering those, because we're trying to learn again, like, what are you using? What do you like? What do you not like? Are you happy with where you are? Are you trying to make changes? Because again, we're just trying to create less friction for you all, and obviously, most importantly, for parents and students going through this process. And then we're going to have some of the folks that we think do it really well and have some pretty in my opinion, based on what I understand so far, I think score is kind of the bell of the ball there. And I don't know if any of you guys know their new kind of AI technology that they're implementing around the admission stuff is relatively new, but it's been very, very powerful. And from what we've seen, it's working pretty stinking good. So um, we're going to have somebody from their team on in maybe it's a month or so or something like that. It's going to be really educational, but for those of you guys that use Score, you can make sure that you understand everything that they have to offer. For those guys that don't, it'll give you another potential resource. So, and I think we'll probably do that with all these folks, right? Because again, that's I know you basically have to live in at least one of these platforms. So, okay, and again, sorry for the sloppy start today. My name is Matt Carpenter. You saw Anne Marie poke her head on there for a second. Anne Marie is our manager of high school partnerships. If you do not partner with us already, and I can see a ton of our partners are on here, so welcome back as always. But if you do not partner with us already, uh, I think you should consider doing so. I will give you a visual in a second here, and I will put this link in the chat, or if you can put this link in the chat here that I'm about to show, Anne Marie, please. But this is book some time with us, and this is just a little bit about how we work with high school counselors and high schools specifically. Look, if I could distill down, all of these changes that are going on in the Department of Education or being suggested, or what's going to happen, if I could distill it down, there's going to be less help on the way. Okay, for students, for parents, certainly. I guess you could say, for school counselors or us, whatever. It just makes our job responsibility that much more important, right? You've heard me, those of you guys that tune in frequently, I always consider us, right, College A Pro and our team of experts and our resources and you all school counselors, we're the tip of the spear. Like, we are who parents and students are looking towards to help them make good decisions in this whole thing. And I think our job and responsibility so far with what I'm seeing has probably got harder. Certainly the responsibility is more. There's just less resources, right? There's less places to turn to now, right? So and again, I'm just seeing the poll questions here, Emery. So I don't know if those just popped up or maybe I'm just seeing them. But anyways, if you don't work with us already, learn what we're all about here. Book some time with Anne Marie. If you are not already kind of sharing our curriculum that we do every the second Tuesday of every month for parents and students, regardless of where they are in this kind of college process. Share that. It's an amazing resource. Any high schools that share our curriculum, the students and parents also get access to our bi-weekly office hours, where they can just talk with our experts live, right? That are there to answer their questions every other Monday at 7 Eastern time, and then our college planning software, right? Again, if you're not familiar with that, take a look. Obviously, you guys are on Coffee Talk here already. And then if you would be so kind, please listen to our podcast, follow it, right? That's kind of fun. Me and Peggy do that. We shoot it every Tuesday. We release it every Thursday. We're talking about all things in this ecosystem, but we get to swear on it, so it's and speak more freely, I guess. So I think that's fun, kind of fun. People seem to enjoy it so far. So, anyways, if you do not partner with us in some capacity, please take the time to learn more. And again, I feel strongly that are focusing this now more than ever. Okay. So what are the big changes since we spoke last? 50% of the Department of Education was laid off. The biggest percentage of that pie that was laid off is um, employees that were working with the Office of Federal Student Aid in some capacity. So in other words, college financial aid stuff somewhere in that realm. Coincidentally or not, we saw within hours of that announcement, the FAFSA was not accessible. It wasn't working. So I don't know if you guys saw spillover of that, but it was shut down for almost 24 hours. People couldn't access it. They couldn't submit it. They couldn't make a correction. That was both neither the colleges nor students or parents could access the FAFSA. There's some speculation as to what it would what caused it. There's no still clear answers. The leader in the clubhouse is that it's not a coincidence. Okay, although that is one of the, I guess, one of the three possibilities. Maybe it was a coincidence. I feel strongly it was not. So it's one of two things. I think the leader in the clubhouse is just that, and at the end of the day, we are a tech company, tech platform. So I have a decent amount of familiarity with how easy it is for these things to happen. Where it's very, very common, no matter how robust anybody's technology is, just bugs happen, right? They happen all the time. They happen frequently, and um, any tech that's big enough will have full-time programmers that are just there to address bugs, right? That is their 24 hours a day. That is what they're doing, just to keep the technology working. So it makes a ton of sense where if you lay off, because a lot of the programmers were laid off. So if you lay off a lot of the programmers that are there for oversight, that's again, oversight is kind of a common theme of folks that are getting let go from any part of the government, and the Department of Education is a part of that. So if you get rid of these folks and their job is to fix bugs, bugs happen, they're not getting fixed, the tech shuts down, right? So that is a very plausible explanation. I think the likely explanation. I was also kind of, I don't know. I guess when I put my tinfoil hat on, I was like, huh, yeah, I wonder if a disgruntled employee said, "Oh, you think I'm useless? Well, maybe I unplug this and the FAFSA shuts down." And I don't think that's too far fetched either, and that possibility is open as well. So, anyways, that was the big announcement and some immediate almost instant impact that we saw. Uh, However, I think it's kind of a maybe a serendipitous microcosm for what we can and should expect moving forward. Now, number one, if you have tried to get anybody from the Department of Education on the phone, or any of these loan servicers on the phone, or to respond to emails in the last few weeks, and specifically in the last week, God bless you if you got through. Because it's pretty much, of course, it's not impossible, but let's put it this way. And I have a team of experts that we are working with families and even themselves that are doing this on a daily basis. We haven't even had anybody have success in getting through to anybody. So again, all that is to say, and the common theme here is nobody's coming to the rescue. So more, and I'm going to circle back to that because I think there's some silver lining there. Okay, and this could be one of the I've been gravitating towards this saying I heard recently of this guy that was on he was a podcast guest, and they were talking about something that's happening in our administration, whatever it was, but there was a lot of as there seems to be catastrophizing going on, and his mindset is what can go right. Right? It's very rarely that everything works out perfectly and everything goes exactly according to plan. It's equally as rare that the sky falls completely and everything goes haywire and horribly. So what could go right? Right? And because again, usually the truth is somewhere in the middle. And in terms of what could go right here, my hope, and again, this is something we say internally all the time, right? That the biggest kind of trap in the system that is attending and paying for college is this mentality. You guys would know better than me if students have it. My guess is they do. I know that parents have it, which is we'll figure it out. Everybody figures it out. My knucklehead neighbor figured it out. My idiot brother-in-law figured it out. These guys in the class ahead of me, they figured it out. No, they didn't. That's why we have $1.8 trillion in debt, right? And there's this, and just kind of this, I always say the superpower that these lenders and colleges have is just this consumer mindset of everybody just blind sheep, just we'll figure it out. Everybody figures it out, and that's their superpower. Where and I think there's a part of that is this trust in just kind of the system, I guess, that parents have, right? And part of that system, a big part of it being the federal government. And I'm not here. I'm not here to disparage the federal government or the college institutions or Wall Street or whatever, even though I have some negative things to say about each of them, and some positive things. But my hope is that, and I think this is our job. I know I consider it my responsibility big time when I coach parents, and I want to distill this down to you all of you need to take ownership of this process. Okay. Nobody's coming to the rescue. We can't just kind of trust that it's going to quote unquote work out. So again, in terms of what can go right, I hope that mindset of like, okay, I'm going to take agency here. Okay, the federal government's going to help me less. They're going to give less money. They're going to give less support. Well, I'm going to take control of this situation. I'm going to figure out. I'm going to get educated. Number one, I'm going to figure out. Okay, my financial aid eligibility all starts with figuring out what my student aid index is. So I'm going to find out what that is. And then I'm going to go find out, well, which colleges, if I'm eligible for need-based financial aid, are really generous with need-based financial aid. And then I want to go to try to make a list, because there's plenty of options that falls in line with that criteria that's specific to me and my family, right? Or I'm not eligible for need-based financial aid. I found out my SAIs is too high. So I have to have a different strategy. I have to go find out which schools are going to give my kid merit-based scholarships, or which schools have less of a insane sticker price that are still going to be great fits for my kid. And I'm going to start to build a list with the affordability piece in mind, along with the stuff that is always front of brain, which is where's my kid going to thrive, where they're going to be most comfortable, what's the right cultural, geographic, academic fit, et cetera, et cetera. But as we all know here, families go shopping first, right? Hey, let's just put this list of schools together, then we'll figure out what they cost us, then we'll figure out our budget, then we'll figure out how to pay for it. No kidding, we're 1.8 trillion in debt. So we know we're going up, but we're going against the current here. But I think this could be some more additional ammunition that just again helps. I don't know, break the narrative that is one of the most damning, which is somebody's coming to the rescue and this will all work out. And, so I don't really need to engage in this process. I don't really need to get myself educated and, treat it like the massive investment than it is. So, anyways, that is my hope. Maybe it's a naive hope. I don't know. Remains to be seen here, but I am choosing to remain optimistic. Let's see, where's my next kind of talking point here? Okay, this one I think is just kind of interesting fodder where I'm assuming a lot of you saw the headlines about Harvard is now going to offer it's going to be tuition free for families that make up to $200,000 a year. It already was the case for students that made up or families that had a household income of up to $100,000 a year. Now Harvard will be completely free, complete cost of attendance, tuition, room and board, fees, etc. For families that make less than 100, and again, free tuition, which is almost 60 grand, or tuition free, which is almost 60 grand for families that make up to 200. This is largely a positive, right? I gotta work a little bit hard to poke some holes in why this isn't all cupcakes and rainbows. But this is a positive here. Now, obviously, now all we have to do is get into Harvard, right? That's the a pretty important caveat here. But a couple things worth talking about that are relevant to not just Harvard, but schools that use kind of marketing tactics similar to this. Now, I'm not calling this a marketing tactic. I have a lot of experience with Harvard. They are by far the most generous college in the country. They do walk the walk. Now, they have a $50 billion endowment. Let me repeat that. They have a $50 billion endowment. They're not generous enough. Nobody should pay for an undergraduate degree to go there. However, they are the best and the most generous, and really the only college, or certainly the most that engineers their formula in terms of how they calculate the SAI in the favor of the consumer in such a way that nobody else does, right? They use the institutional methodology, but the specific parameters that they use makes it, you know, more financially feasible for so many more families. Okay, and they don't do that nonsense like count your home equity against you like a lot of their peer institutions. And thank you for sharing that, Anne Marie. So I we are doing a tomorrow night. We are doing. Let me just Anne Marie put this link in the chat. I know that I'm aware that I'm interrupting myself as I've been known to do here, but we're doing a kind of state of the union chat. We're getting into the weeds of what all the changes are, how they're going to impact students and families, and what families can do to kind of A, again, just get educated, and B, to just prepare themselves, right? And how is it going? Loans are going to be the biggest impact right away. Okay, this student loan space, which I'll talk about, that's going to be the biggest impact. But there are some other things that families should be aware of. And again, we're just trying to coach them up on what can they be doing, right? Proactively, which should they be looking out for, et cetera. So we're doing that tomorrow night, 7 Eastern time. If you want to share it with your community. I think a lot of you know my colleague Peg Keogh, that we call the fairy godmother of financial aid, or the budget queen. She's earned both of those nicknames, but she's very well connected in the Department of Education. She's our director of education by title, so she spends so much of her day to day just being educated on top of all these policy changes, and speaks to it much better. Basically coaches me and team up, right? So I can talk about it a little bit to you all, but she is certainly the guru, and she's going to be leading the charge there, and I'll be playing a supporting role there. So please share that if you think it's of value, and I'm confident you'll find that it is. Okay, so let's see. Back to my talk track around Harvard. So so that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. I commend Harvard. I appreciate them. I appreciate them doing that. What it does is it brings up for me similar things that some colleges will do. Some of them are, we meet 100% of need, or we're a no loan school, or USC a few years ago, we don't consider home equity. Most of those, I think, oftentimes can be marketing ploys. Now, we did a deep dive on all the colleges that say they meet 100% in need. Do they? We found that less than 50% do. Okay, and we have a lot of data to support that. It's easy for them to talk their way out of that because it's easy to move the goalpost. Well, we just had a different way of calculating the SAI, right? Which we counter with, well, we know exactly how you calculate the SAI, and how can it be different than what we're seeing, aside from some outliers, right? And again, data is data, and we're looking at it, objectively. But that was interesting because the school says they meet 100% in need. There's no watchdog to support that. That is not always the case. And again, they can always kind of move the field goal posts in terms of the SAI. Now, I would say that still most of those colleges, even if they don't meet 100% of need, generally speaking, that is that is they're still the schools that are most generous with need-based financial aid, even if they're not quite as good as they say. So even though I am being a little bit disparaging here, they're still towards the top in terms of need-based financial aid, and how they disperse that. I'm less of a fan of these schools that say, well, we're no loan schools anymore, right? Now there is some substance in that, because usually most of the schools that have done this, I'm thinking of Notre Dame most recently, and I'm not I'm not the Spurn lover just because I didn't get accepted there. Just kidding, I am. And they're not alone here. They're just a name that popped in my head and did it most recently. Is that some substance here is that they will increase need-based grants, right, by the amount of, say, the subsidized loans, and that's a good thing. That's real substance, and that's real money, and that's a real further free money discount that families are getting. However, I know tons every single year, and this year is no different, of families that they get their financial aid package from these colleges, but guess what? They need to borrow. And the best way to borrow is the federal direct student loan. That's the best starting point. That is still the that is still the universal recommendation. If you're a family and or a student that needs to borrow in any capacity, you got to start with a federal direct student loan. Families don't know about this if it's not offered in their financial aid package, and they don't know that they're entitled to that. And that all they need to go is go back to the school, specifically the student, because it's just their name, and the student needs to write the financial aid office and say, hey, I wasn't offered the federal direct student loan because you're a no loan school. Thank you. But my family and myself needs that money. I would like to have it. Okay. You're entitled to that. So you will get it, but just keep that in mind for your really good students and families that are, and now more and more colleges are doing it. You know, a lot of the NESCACs do it now. A lot of the Ivies, where they, again, they're no loan schools, but we need that loan. You know, so make sure that they ask for that. It's also a competitive advantage to take advantage of for a few reasons. Number one, that loan's only in the student's name. So even for families that don't need it, we still have them take it, pay it back instantaneously before any interest accrues, do that every year. The kid graduates with established credit. It's like such a great perk. The rich getting richer, right? But it's very sound strategic guidance, right? That you can provide. There's no reason not to do it. Let's say things go haywire a subsequent year, or even going into freshman year. If you've accepted the federal direct student loan, you are at a competitive advantage to have a more successful appeal. If you haven't accepted it, or you don't utilize the federal direct student loan, you're almost guaranteed not to have a successful appeal. That goes for all colleges. So there's a few, again, strategic reasons that even if you're not somebody that really wants to borrow or needs your kid to borrow, you should still be utilizing that for any number of factors. And those are just two of the kind of most important ones. So I just highlight that to say that look at these schools that are saying, hey, um, you know, we're a no loan school, we met 100% need, you know, I just again I don't get the warm fuzzies for good reason completely, because usually there's kind of a marketing tactic at play, and at the end of the day, that's okay. That's a good marketing tactic. Those, you know, those families win. The USC's of the world, Southern California, they bothered me a little bit more because when they said, "Hey, a couple of years ago, we no longer consider you know, home equity," but what they did with their formula, and again, we have very good intel here, was based on some organic relationships, is they tweaked other parts of their formula. So yes, they didn't look at home equity, but they looked at more of the income, more of the assets. So they, as a college, were still netting the same. Overall, their income in class was still basically paying the same, but is very clever marketing. And again, my hat's off to you. But let's call it you know, what it is. And then they did not make a big of an announcement. And now they just openly consider home equity again. But I did not see the same press release. I did not see that in any of their brochures or splashed over their website in the same way. Okay. That's also relevant because when we share these types of things with students and with families, right? You know, we're saying, look, I'm throwing a lot of different scenarios at you, and you know, 100% in need, and you know, what is your SAI and things like this. But families have to know this stuff, right? They have to know it, and there's, you know, some different strategies that you want to implement based on your family situation, right? So, and we like to always kind of anchor to the technology, anchor to the platform, let that do the work for you, right? And most of you are familiar with this. So you know, families get to see what their SAI is. They get to see what colleges actually cost them. Because a lot of families don't know that, hey, most schools that use the institutional methodology, you know, like Boston College, like Columbia, like Tulane, for example, if you're a divorced or separated family, they're going to look at both households, okay? Unless you're a Vanderbilt or a U Chicago or a Santa Clara or an RPI, any number of, right? But this is all baked into the platform. Like, let our algorithm do the work. So, hey, you got a really smart kid and you're a divorced or separated family. We've sent, I'm thinking of this one kid in particular. We've sent families to Vanderbilt that have got so much freaking financially, quite frankly, like I've almost felt guilt. Now I haven't, because the Vanderbilt family is not going to go out of business. Neither is Vanderbilt University, so I didn't feel real guilt. But it's one of these situations where, quite frankly, that kid shouldn't have been getting financial aid, but that's how they do their formula. On the other hand, let's say you're not divorced or separated and you own your home and you have a lot of equity in your home, Vanderbilt's looking at every single dollar of that, right? So I just share, you guys know this stuff, but parents don't. And that's why we just want them to have this information, right? And again, especially when there's going to be less resources, there's going to be less help on the way, there's going to be less oversight for colleges. They are more on their own than they ever have been. And again, I don't mind that so long as they're getting themselves educated and they have their own resources and they're taking accountability, agency, etc. So again, this is just this is just, we want to make sure that you guys know about this, that parents know about this, so they can make these really good decisions. And then we're looking at the next step. Okay, here's what Columbia is going to cost you year one, and Boston College, Tulane, etc. But what's it over 4 years versus your budget? How much are you going to have to borrow? And then what's your first monthly loan payments going to be? And do we like this outcome? Okay, does the ROI, kind of make sense here based on the major, if we know that, et cetera, and obviously the specific school, right? What can we expect for starting salaries, things like this? Because I teased it earlier, and I will reiterate, the loan space is going to be, in my opinion, but I'll die on this hill, at least immediately the most impacted with all these changes here. And I think the cons are going to outweigh the pros. I hope I'm wrong about that. Okay, because the new the former WWE yeah, First Lady Linda McMahon, now the Secretary of the Department of Education, she said explicitly, it's in writing. The Wall Street, the private sector should own the loans here. We're pulling back as the federal government. They've already stopped the SAVE program. They've already stopped the IBR repayment program, income-based repayment plan. So plus loans, the federal program for parents that need to borrow, is going to become way less attractive, way less flexible, a meaningful amount harder to qualify for. They're pulling back from that business. So in comes Wall Street. They've already had obviously a meaningful presence here, but now they're going to own, if they don't own it all, they're going to capture so much of the market share. I'm optimistic by nature. I'm pessimistic about this because it's going to go one of two ways. The optimistic viewpoint is Wall Street takes over, and capitalism and competition works like it's supposed to. These guys all compete for our business, and may the best rate win. And me as the consumer gets to borrow with the lowest and best interest rate and repayment plan. I hope it works out that way. I don't think it's going to. I think you're going to have more more wolves in the hen house here, or whatever that phrase is, because at the end of the day, the private loan market space, there's like 6 major banks, there's like half a dozen major players. All they have to do is a couple of winks, a couple of handshakes among the old boys club, and then they say, let's make the best rates 8%, 9%, 10%, and just go up from there. And people are still going to borrow money for college. We no longer necessarily have to anchor to the federal government. All that's to say is I think colleges get more expensive because, not because of the college prices, because of what people are going to have to pay to borrow, which is most consumers, as we know. So we want to arm families now with, again, some of that education, because what can they do about that today? Well, number one, pay attention to us, because we are actively trying to have conversations with these lenders and get in front of them to say, guys, don't. We're trying to see, is there a good player or players in the space that really want to do the right thing and give. They need to make money. That's fine, no problem. But give families at least a reasonable rate, or So I promise we're doing everything we can to make an impact here. Because what we want to do is say, like, give somebody the opportunity. Like, if we send everybody your way, can you give them a good, fair rate and repayment terms, etc. I don't know. I don't know if we're going to be able to have that type of impact. Again, we're going to give it everything, but and no news on that front so far. But what families and parents should be doing now, and students, everything you can to improve your credit score, because the rate and repayment terms you get is almost entirely based on your credit score. Your DTI is relevant for a lot of these lenders as well. Sorry, your DTI, debt to income ratio. Okay, that's relevant, and again, but not for all lenders. Some lenders just look at FICO score. And again, some lenders will look at the parents and the students. If students don't have any credit score, they won't look at it. If it's good, it'll help. If it's bad, which is more likely for younger folks, it'll hurt. So these are we've been giving folks again kind of specific instructions, like here's some things you can do to at least tweak that credit score up in the short term a little bit right now, which is ultimately going to help you pay less for college, in the long term. We're trying to educate them about state lenders, right? Where not a lot of people know that there's 3 states in the country that anybody can borrow through, even if they're not a resident of that state, even if they don't go to college in that state. My home state in Massachusetts here, I'm not too crazy about their program, MIFA. Rhode Island, I like them a little better. RISLA, right, just south of us. And of all places, you guessed it, Iowa. Iowa has a who of those 3 that I just mentioned, I like them the best. They're the most transparent, right? They just look at the FICO score. They look at whoever has the best FICO score for cosigners, and they give you that rate, based on that. They're of any of the lenders we have experience with, they're the most transparent. They're a nonprofit organization, so yes, they're there to make money, but I think not in such a way that some of these other institutions are. I think they're a little bit more. I don't want to give them too much credit. Again, they're a business, but there is. I think they're a little bit more mission minded than some of the other players in the space. Let's put it that way. And I think at the end of the day, the product aligns with that. Um, and again, their source of funds is state municipal bonds, so they just get cheap capital compared to some of the other sources of capital that are coming from the private lending space. Okay, so more to follow on that. We're going to work very hard this loan season to educate, you all and parents, because again, I think it's going to be the hardest challenge in the short term here with some of these changes. Okay, do I have any more speeches here? I think that's it for now. Yeah, the other kind of cool thing here is that I like is that and I don't know if you saw this, but how endowments are taxed, which they're in tax for colleges specifically at such insanely low rates that most aren't even taxed at all. But there's some changes coming there. I'll be interested to see what they're doing with those funds, but hopefully, again, it's going to create from our richest institutions. They're going to be giving more basically back to financial aid in the system as a whole. I hope so. So that's a change I think that most people look at and say that makes sense. A 50 buck, because a lot of these colleges, right, they're hedge funds that don't pay taxes, right, is another way that they could be described in its most crass way, of course. But so there's an opportunity there. There's some, again, if we're a $50 billion endowment that's paying 1% tax, that just doesn't make sense. Right? Can we ramp up that a little bit and then reallocate some of those dollars? I think most people can get behind that. So that's a positive change that I see here. All right, I think that was my talk track today. Again, I appreciate the feedback on those admissions platforms, because we're learning as with you guys, and we just any feedback and education you can provide, I think again is going to collectively just make us better here, and we just want to have less friction for you, less friction for parents, and just work, towards having the admissions fit stuff and the affordability piece just be more married, right? More intertwined. Just have that be a natural part of the process. So it again, we're flipping the process on its head a little bit, right? We go to buy a home first. The bank tells us you got to find a home based on your resources. You got to find a home that fits within this budget. Go crazy, go shopping. why can't we do that with this college piece? Guess what? We can. We just got to do it, and we're trying to help you, or help each other collectively. Just make that easier and more plausible, and give you guys some visibility, right? Like you guys don't have a chance. You're flying blind. You're saying, hey, here's 20 great schools that I know you're going to thrive at, and it's a balanced list in terms of safety, target, reach. But most of you have no idea where they fit on a family's affordability profile. Are they going to get financial aid? Are they going to get scholarships? So we're trying to empower you and them to have those things be more intertwined. You're gonna, and we have the data. You get better results, unsurprisingly, when you approach it through that lens. So please book some time with Anne Marie if you haven't already. Check out our counselor page. Follow our podcast. It's good for my personal validation. I need that validation, man. I'm working on not needing that, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet. So in the meantime, please help that. Uh, help me out there. And I'll stick around just for 1 minute if there's any particular questions. Again, doesn't have to be related to this. We're in full on appeal season for the class 2025. We've had our most successful season ever in terms of appeals. So make sure you're coaching up your families to appeal for more. We're doing another presentation for class 2025 on appeals next week. So share that. Oh, and if anybody wants, email Anne Marie. So it's counselor@collegeaidpro.com. If you're not going to share our I'm putting this, or Anne Marie, please put your email in the chat, please. If you want the deck for our kind of State of the Union, what are all the Department of Education changes? What should we be looking out for? Blah, blah, blah. Email Anne Marie and she can get that for you. And again, Anne Marie, if you can just I can put it in here, counselor@collegeaidpro.com. Email Anne Marie there and she can share the deck with you. There you go, or book some time with her, whatever. If you want that deck, but otherwise share that with your families. We'll be doing that tomorrow night, and we'll do it again. We'll be doing it consistently. We have a fluid situation there for those of you that have not noticed. All right, looks like we do not have any questions. Appreciate you guys tuning in as always. Sorry for the technical snafus. We didn't have our stuff together at the beginning, I guess. Oh yeah, we just shared the the Spotify link, but we have it on Apple or whatever, wherever you listen to your podcasts. Please like, follow, share, etc. We'd be very grateful for that. So thanks, y'all. Thanks, Anne Marie.